Hey guys, hope your day is going good. Uh, well, fellas, we've been talking about lately quite a bit about spacers and intakes. So we're going to continue that discussion a little bit. And I'm showing you one here that it's a 1-inch spacer. And most of the time, that's all you really need. I've tried it where I've overcompensated just to see the difference. I've used the big ones like this here. On my 302, I put one about this size on, but it was a 4-hole. And to be honest, the car ran exactly the same, so it did absolutely nothing. That was on a RPM air gap. And that very well could be, it was a 4-hole. And my theory is on a 4-hole spacer on a small plenum, it seems like it doesn't help. Because on the air gap, even when I had the 1-inch with the 4-hole, it didn't seem like it really did a lot. But yet on the weigh-in 8011 that I talk about, it works really well. If I remember right, it's like 3/10, maybe 4 on our setup. But guys, what I wanted to tell you, you don't need to spend big money for like any of them high dollar fancy spacers. If you do, you're just wasting your money. We tried one of the high dollar ones, and I've talked about this before in my other segments, but this cheap spacer outran it by 1/10 of a second, guys. And that was an expensive spacer. It was fancy looking. It had the milled spacing on the back, like where it's like a double spacers machine. You guys probably know what I'm talking about. And then it has the oval holes in it and has a little plunger type in the middle. And they're expensive. I don't want to mention their names, but there are some knockoffs and they work the same basically. But you don't really need that. So I'm showing you this one. And why am I showing you this one? Because instead of you buying an open spacer and saying, well, do I need a 4-hole spacer or an open spacer? I'd really like to try that. Don't go out and buy 3 or 4 different spacers, guys, because what you do here, Advanced Auto and AutoZone both carry these. Probably Pep Boys too. Just buy this one, fellas. This is faded out now, but in the package they're real red looking. But you have your open spacer. It comes with an insert to take up the extra room, because this is actually bigger than a standard spacer by that much. So it has an insert to go in it. I don't know if that shows you what I'm talking about or not. So then what you have is that. So now you have 2 spacers for about $22 to $28. Things have gone up since I purchased this, but that's what you have, guys. The only reason I have it marked like this here, guys, because you do have to figure out what end goes in where. It goes in one way on one side, and I just marked it so I would know, especially to show you guys instead of sitting here trying to place it around. Hey, look, fellas. Then it looks like, I don't want that. That's aggravating. But they work nice. Sometimes you do have to maybe just take some sandpaper where they'll fit in nice, or a little oil, depending how they're machined. Some are tighter than others. I don't have this pushed all the way in now because it's hard to get in and out sometimes. But you got to remember heat gets to this, and that does stuff to it. But the only thing I did want to address is that this spacer here, I've modified this spacer. I actually made it like one of the fancy ones. They don't look like this, guys. They're actually just a small port, and they work fine. I've opened this way up. I made this into one of the ones I'm talking about. I put that design on it. That was for one of our cars we were trying this on. And I said, well, rather than buy an expensive spacer again, I'll just make my own. And that's what I did, guys. So that's the same type design that I was telling you about. So that's what that is about. And now, so I don't have to do 3 or 4 segments, I'm going to try to do 2 in 1, guys. Back to the Parker. Parker. I hope you guys ain't getting fed up with this. I had a guy, one of our friends from YouTube, come on last night and he said, hey, you gave me an idea. I might buy a funnel web intake and cut the plenum off of it. And I thought, okay, so what's his story on this? And then he started telling me he thought by removing the top and went into detail how he was going to do this intake. So right away, I knew the guy knows what he's doing, or he sure sounds like it to me. So guys, I was afraid to show you this, and because of our friend that got a hold of me last night, I'm going to show you. And this is what I'm back to, fellas. And I'm going to explain why. And I think I know why he's going to do what he said he's going to do. It's so weird because I did this, and then he talked to me about taking the whole top of the intake off and modifying it and told me what he was going to do. So, here's how we do it, fellas. Hang there with me for a minute, because this is going to be hard to show you. What happened, I tried everything I could do on these runners. Let's see if I can find a better way to set this, guys. I cut these runners back and blended them in. And these runners here were still taking all the air. No matter what I did here, modifying this, even opening these up, these 2 runners are still taking the air. So then I told you guys, hey, I have a brilliant idea. I'm going to put a spacer on here and move it over. So then I'm on the internet and I came across a segment on the Track Boss, my favorite show, and they were talking about spacers. And he had an intake on there, and he showed it, and he said it was longer this way than it was this way. And so, long story short, where I thought my theory would be making this back more this way, I found out through them that that actually gives tendency to feed these center runners more, if I understood it right. So that put me back into another scenario. And I was kind of wondering about that myself. I'm like, well, maybe if I cut this back more, then it wouldn't have the tendency to put the air that way. But I couldn't figure out if I was on the right track or the wrong track with that state of mind. So that kind of threw me off a little bit. But getting back to this, just the plenum alone, we'll forget about the spacer for a minute. When I cut this way back here and use this wall that's when these were given up. It's almost like they threw a flag. I surrender. Now the arrows started moving into that port. So what do you do? Oh, there's no flange left hardly. And I don't care. Because this thing's going to do what I want it to do. So, we're on the same page. Me and my YouTube buddy. I think it's exactly what he's talking about. Guys, I'm going to cut all this back. And then, what I'm going to do is put another spacer on there. And it's going to be like this. It's going to be beveled in. This is just a rough idea, guys. This isn't how it's going to be, but this is just one of them spacers that's actually for like a quadrijet or something. I'm just using this to give you guys an idea, my idea on this. But that's what we're going to wind up with, something like that. But I gotta flip it around because I'm trying to give you an idea, because this way you wouldn't be able to see. But let me see if I can get the phone in there to show you guys. This is actually how it would be. So, after I do that, then of course I'm going to have to taper the spacer in. And then I'm going to have it welded. But guys, that's the only way I can see this going to make this work how I want it to work. I don't see any way around it except for getting into a situation like this. The other ways, it's not going to do what I want it to do. There's just no way I can get the air to move that way. I don't know what more you could do to it. And that's the only thing I am still concerned about, is if I move this wall back and this wall back, because that's also, I believe, still helping the air to have tendency to go that way. So now I'm still wondering if I remove this whole wall, at least down to here, and just make this all flat in here, because already it's having tendency to go in and right into them runners. That's why it's doing that. So I don't know if I'm on the right path with that, or if you think about it, you put a spacer on like that. That's not a good one to use for an example. Let me try to use this one. That sounded good, right, guys? So if I put this on, it would have tendency to move it over, which I would think would take the air more center, more to the outside. But how am I going to go against somebody that does this stuff in the pro stock field, that does it all the time? I don't ever want to think I'm doing something right and discredit somebody else that does it all the time when they mess with this stuff every day and have been doing it for 40 or 50 years. How do you do that? But then again, it's a spacer. I could still do it and still try it. The only difference would be is that it's going to be welded to the intake. So that's one of my dilemmas, guys. That's where I'm at with this. So once again, I'm against the wall and I have to figure this out. But getting back to your spacers, guys, if you put a spacer on something, make sure that you also get longer studs. I've made that mistake. I've ran home, couldn't wait to get the spacer on, try it. And guess what? Forgot to put longer studs in. So then I had a spacer this thick and a stud this long. So remember that, fellas. Buy studs for that. But another dilemma, guys. We're just going to try to keep hammering this thing until something gets accomplished with it. Now this is just something to throw me against the wall again, but you know what, guys, we do? We get up every time we get knocked down, and we put our feet forward, we dust ourselves off, and take another step forward. And then we might take another step back, and if we do, we'll do the same thing. Sometimes we have to do it that way, guys. But anyway, fellas, I thought I'd run this by you. I hope I'm not wearing you out with this stuff, but every time I run into a dilemma like this, I want to share it with you guys. And we'll see what happens from here. I'll be glad when I see this thing completely finished. That's what I know. And I hope it works after I do all this to it. But we're going to keep hammering at it, guys. But I want you guys to take care of yourself and have a good night. See you, fellas.